The Buccaneers are coming into Monday night with a potentially huge advantage. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you every Monday through Friday along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All right. I will probably mention this again at the end of the show, but I do want to start this show off. Some of you may already know about this. Some of you, this may be the first time you're hearing it, but wanted to take a moment to send well wishes, thoughts, and prayers to the family of Doug Martin, the former Buccaneers running back. Unfortunately passed away on Saturday. The cause of death has not been disclosed. It has not been confirmed, but 36 years old is just way, way too young. He is the fourth member of the 2013 Buccaneers team to pass away before the age of 40, joining Vincent Jackson, Mike Williams, and Daniel Teonesheim. So our thoughts, prayers, well wishes from the Buccaneers community goes out to the family and friends of Doug Martin. Terrible, terrible news here on a football Sunday. But we are here to talk about a Monday night football game between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Detroit Lions. It's really hard to transition from such bad news into something that a lot of you are really, really looking forward to. But I did want to make sure that we mentioned that at the top of the show. Doug Martin was a favorite of many, many people, including my son, when he first got into football. Muscle Hamster was his guy. So, I wanted to make sure that we paid our respects here from the Locked On Bucs family and the Bucs Nation community. All right, keys to victory and predictions are coming up in a little bit, but let's start with the potentially big and surprising news. First, let's start with what was semi-expected, and that is that it appears that Mike Evans, Zion McCollum, and Benjamin Morrison will all be ready to go for Monday night against the Detroit Lions. And then on Saturday, as I was driving through the state of Iowa, which was the same thing that was going on when we got the news that Mike Evans was practicing. So now I'm driving back through Iowa. We get the news that Emeka Egbuka was practicing on Saturday and is officially in play for Monday night. Now, Egbuka is a true game time decision. Todd Bowles said that they wanted to see how he was doing, how he was feeling, but he is in play for this game. And it would be a borderline miracle for him to leave last week with a hamstring injury and manage to be out there against the Lions. And of course, while we're all excited about this possibility, there is a part of me that thinks back to that Ravens game last year when Mike Evans went out there to try to play through a hamstring injury, ended up making it worse. And, if Egbuka is going to be out there, I am going to be slightly nervous that he's putting himself at risk for missing multiple games down the line. That said, if he and Evans are both good to go, the Bucs have a significant advantage against the Lions, who are without their entire starting secondary. Brian Branch is suspended. Kirby Joseph, Avonte Maddox, Terrion Arnold are all ruled out, and then DJ Reed is on injured reserve. Their entire secondary will be made up of reserves and backups for an offense that has been able to do a lot all season long with very little in terms of their allotment of weapons. This is massive. You're still going to see opportunities for Tez, Cam, and Shep, but Mike and Emeka will be in a position where they are constantly in a plus matchup. When you think back to what Godwin was able to do against the Lions last year, 7 receptions, 117 yards, and a touchdown, that was a much better Lions secondary. So now you're going to have Evans going up against Amik Robertson and Egbuka against Rock Ya-Sin. Guys, they're about to feast. Like, we're talking free access to a buffet kind of feast. We do have to note the players for the Bucs that will be out: Chris Godwin, Bucky Irving, Luke Haggard, Josh Williams, all ruled out this week. So your running backs are going to be Rashad White, Sean Tucker, and then likely a practice squad elevation for Owen Wright. For the offensive line, it sounds like Michael Jordan is potentially available for this game. Bowles was asked about it and said that Jordan is making progress and is in play for Monday night. Now, if that's the case, Jordan would take over at right guard, but that would also be his third elevation from the practice squad, which means he's going to have to be added to the active roster moving forward. As far as McCollum is concerned, Bowles said that he is going to be able to do everything, will not be limited with that thumb injury. As far as other injuries that the Lions are dealing with, they have tackle. I'm so sorry. I put in the wrong name. They have tackled Taylor Decker. I wrote Terrion Arnold for a second time. Taylor Decker, as well as defensive lineman DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil, all listed as questionable. The one to keep an eye on is Decker. He was limited Thursday and Friday, but did not practice on Saturday. Usually when you go from limited to not participating, it's not a good sign. Now, this could have been precautionary on Detroit's part to give him that extra rest to deal with his shoulder injury, but it's not usually great to not participate on the last day of practice of the week when you did participate in the previous ones. Reader and McNeil, I expect both to play. McNeil was a full participant all week long. Reader was limited on Friday and Saturday after sitting out Thursday. He was already trending up. I expect both of them to be in the lineup, just like with Levante David. He is also listed as questionable. Did not participate Thursday or Friday as he deals with knee and rib injuries, but was a full participant on Saturday. That tells me that he is going to be on the field. The Lions' pass defense has been decent this year. Top 10 in completions allowed, interceptions, and sacks, but they're 24th in touchdowns allowed. Losing both starting safeties for this game is going to really hurt them against guys like not just Mike and Emeka, but the way that we saw Tez be able to stretch the field, the way we were able to see Cam Johnson be a huge factor against the 49ers. Shep continues to be Shep. He's not going to explode for you. He's not going to put up, 150 and 2, but he's your steady. He's your constant. He's your reliable guy that Baker knows that he can trust in these situations. So there are going to be big plays available down the field if the Bucs can give Baker the time that he needs to throw the ball. All right, I do want to jump into the chat where we had tons and tons of messages about Doug Martin, all of you showing love to him. Devin says that I didn't even know that Mike Williams passed. Yeah, Mike Williams passing was really, really crazy. Not only because of his age, he was only, I believe, 35, but the way that it happened, he had gotten an infection in his tooth, and that infection got into his bloodstream. I learned not too long ago that the number one cause for heart attacks is actually your teeth. When those get infected, it can affect your heart. It's really, really scary stuff. So go to the dentist, everybody. It's important. Let's see. Bucko Rico says, honestly, he seemed fine, meaning Egbuka, on the sideline last Sunday. Having him and Evans would be fantastic. I didn't notice him a lot on the sideline because I was trying to get through the game on a delay and I was bouncing just from play to play. But a lot of reports that he was walking off the field just fine. He was walking around. He was working with a personal trainer off on the side during the week and looked to be okay. So I don't want him to push it. I don't want him to come back too soon. I told you guys last week that I thought that Egbuka probably would sit out this game and then the Saints game on top of it, just to be sure. If he's available to play in this game and is normal self, that's going to be huge for the Buccaneers. Demon Hunter, James, keep driving through Iowa. It's good juju. I would rather not. Shout out to one of the insiders that texted me when I had put that I was driving through Iowa. 3 out of 10 would not recommend. And she texted and she goes, I live in Iowa. And I'm like, okay, it's nothing personal against the state, but I was driving on a state route. And I kid you not, I passed 7 John Deere dealerships before I got to a single gas station. And I hadn't eaten like at all. I was starving. I wanted to get out and stretch. It was very, very frustrating. On the way back, much nicer, much smoother, was on a highway. It was fantastic. But yeah, maybe I do. Maybe if I just move to Iowa, all the Buccaneers are magically healed and available, and the Bucs are going to go 16-1. All right. What do the Buccaneers need to do to win this game? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's sad. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos that your software created. Everything from onboard to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything that they touch. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnfl. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnfl. That's rippling.com/lockedonnfl for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, easy, and honestly, the best way to follow along with Sunday football. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. All right, what do the Buccaneers need to do to win this game? Let's talk about the offense because it's more fun to talk about the offense because they got Baker and Egbuka and Evans and Bucky when he's back and Rashad and Godwin, and it's all kinds of fun. They're awesome. We love the offense. But the key to this one is block Aiden Hutchinson for the love of all things holy. That's it. If you block him effectively, Baker is going to be able to pick this defense apart. Rashad is going to be able to run the ball. The Bucs are going to be able to control the game. Aiden Hutchinson is the number 1 edge rusher in the league, according to PFF this season, with a grade of 93.0. He is averaging a sack a game, and he dominated a backup tackle against the Bucs last year. He also, this season, has 4 forced fumbles. The Lions, as a team, do not have an overly impressive defense. They are bottom 5 in tackles for loss, bottom 5 in yards allowed per completion, touchdowns per attempt, first downs per attempt. But on the flip side, they are in the top 10 in interceptions per attempt and top 5 in sack percentage. This is the ultimate all or nothing defense. They are either getting a sack, getting a takeaway, or giving up a big play. The Bucs have to expose that, and you do so by making sure that Hutchinson is not a one-man wrecking crew. I don't care what you have to do. Put 3 tight ends over on his side and make sure that he is not getting into the backfield. You can run with 2 receivers and Rashad out of the backfield running routes. You can let Evans be one-on-one. You can let Egbuka be one-on-one. Against the secondary, you can let them be 1-on-2. They're still open. You have to focus on making sure that Hutchinson is not absolutely destroying Charlie Heck. Just give Baker time. He is going to be able to push the ball down the field, and the Bucs will run up their side of the scoreboard. Defensively, it's going to be what we've talked about a lot this year. It's going to be, honestly, what we harped on all last year leading up to the Lions game in week 2. Bend, do not break. I really, really like this matchup of Jamel Dean versus Amon-Ra. I think that St. Brown is still going to get plenty of opportunities, and he's going to rack up some receptions and some yards, but Dean is not going to allow him to take the game over. That's the matchup that I want to see more often than not out of this defense. Now, that's not to say that I don't have faith in McCollum or Morrison to get the job done, but McCollum has struggled at times this season. He's been a little up and down compared to the steadiness that we saw last year, and Morrison is still a rookie. He did a really good job against Nico Collins on Monday Night Football back in week 2. He did a really good job filling in for Dean against the Philadelphia Eagles, but St. Brown is a different kind of monster. But even beyond that, there's going to be a lot of dump-offs and short yardage for Gibbs and Montgomery. Gibbs is an absolute weapon in the passing game just as much as he is in the running game. So that's going to be a concern for this defense. The Bucs are one of the worst teams in the NFL against running backs in the passing game. So Levante and Voss need to be on top of their game again this week. They were both really good last week against McCaffrey. CMC got his, as he always does, but it was the yards after catch that were really limited and caused drives to eventually stall. That's what this one is going to have to be. You can give up the reception, but the player has to go down immediately. Gibbs, Montgomery, Laporta is another big one as the Bucs struggle against tight end. You cannot let them get loose in the second and third levels of the defense, because that's where the Lions can really hurt this Buccaneers defense. It's going to drive you nuts. You're going to get angry and you're going to get upset, but this is exactly the recipe they needed to win this game last year. It's the exact recipe that they need to win the game this year. Jared Goff against Todd Bowles defenses in his career, he's 3-2, 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, averaging over 320 passing yards a game. So this is the perfect time for the Bucs to bump him down to 3-3. Maybe they can be opportunistic again. I'm not going to call for another Jamel Dean interception, but it's certainly not going to surprise me if he comes away with one. He's been an absolute ball hawk this year, and that's what Todd Bowles has wanted. All right, Benjamin in the chat. My player to watch is Reddick. I have a feeling he will have a coming out party. I love that. Reddick has played really, really well this year. Again, he's not racking up those sack numbers that you were hoping that he would get. It's not to say that he won't still end up with double digits by the end of the year, but they're not the massive, gaudy sack numbers. But overall, he has played really, really well, has forced some bad passes from some of these quarterbacks that the Bucs have been able to take advantage of. Overall, the pass rush isn't playing poorly. It's just that there's no real true standout. Let's see. CCS216. I'm hoping Diaby starts putting together back-to-back solid games. Would love to see that. Diaby was absolutely on fire last week. Would love to see that happen again, and that'll play off of what Reddick is doing. And if Diaby starts off hot and then the Lions start to shift their focus over to him a little bit, that's going to free up Reddick with some one-on-one opportunities. That's really kind of what the Bucs were going for with that free agent signing. Let's see. We got a couple people talking about Sam Laporta in the chat being a monster. He is, and the Bucs really struggle against tight ends. That matchup is certainly concerning. Tyler, Egbuka start over Tez in my fantasy league. Okay, here's what I'm going to tell you. The same thing that I told my son, who has Egbuka. Start Egbuka if you can, but make sure that you have a pivot option that you can switch to on Monday night. Obviously, you couldn't come into this week starting Egbuka if you didn't have any other players on Monday night, but put him in your starting lineup for sure. Just make sure that you can pivot away. My son went out and picked up Cade Otton so that if for some reason they decide that Egbuka is not going to go, they're going to go ahead and make him inactive. Now he's got someone to switch to. Tez is kind of that perfect option. If he's inactive, you can switch, or if he's active and we hear, he's on a snap count or he's on a pitch count, maybe you want to switch to Tez for the upside of the deep shots rather than kind of risking Egbuka going out there for a drive, maybe getting one catch and then saying, you know what, I don't want to push it. I felt it's not 100%. I don't feel right. And then he sits for the rest of the game. So you just, that's kind of the game that you have to play. So as long as you have a pivot option, you're good to go there. All right. Predictions are coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Mazda crafts cars for those who simply do more than move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how they craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is where I always go to place all my parlays, prop bets, game bets for just about every sport. It definitely adds a little excitement to your NFL Sundays. I tell you guys all the time about my group parlay that we do. Guys, we went 8 out of 10 this week. We missed Jefferson in the early slate. We missed Bill Krosky in the late slate, but we're getting close. We're going to hit it this season. I can feel it. The Bucs lead the NFC at 5-1 and are hitting the road to take on the Lions on Monday Night Football. They are still 5.5-point road underdogs with an over-under of 53.5. But if you want to get into a little player prop action, Baker Mayfield locked in at an over-under of 242.5 passing yards. Jahmyr Gibbs over under 60.5 rushing yards. And in his return to the field, the over under for Mike Evans receiving yards is 65.5. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Ripping things up here on a live preview edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. All right, I already see you guys starting to drop some predictions in the chat. We are going to get to as many of those at the end of the show as possible. A little change for Evan Klosky. He is going to switch his bold prediction to Sterling Shepard having 4 third down receptions. So he is calling his shot as Shep being the third down go-to guy in this game. But he's sticking with Tez Johnson for his player of the game and sticking with the Lions to win this one 31-28. Every party needs a pooper. That's why we invited you, Evan Klosky, but that's okay. We still love Evan all the same. All right, my bold, I am going with Baker Mayfield having not one, but 2 passing touchdowns of over 40 yards. This just feeds off of what I already talked about. If Baker has time, there are going to be huge mismatches down the field. Egbuka, if he truly is healthy, can go, he is a deep threat. Tez and Cam are going to be deep threats. Mike Evans can always be a deep threat. You just have to give Baker the time that he needs to set and throw. Player of the game in this one, I'm riding the hot hand, guys. I'm going with Jamel Dean. Again, it's going to be on him primarily to shut down St. Brown. I need him to continue that all-pro trajectory that he's on and really get St. Brown frustrated. Take away Jared Goff's favorite target in this game. That's also going to free up Zion, Morrison, Antoine Tyke, and Parrish to do some other things. Now, mostly Antoine and Tyke, to be fair, but if Dean isn't needing help over the top with St. Brown, if they're not bracketing him, if they're not doubling him at, because Dean is playing so well and he can lock him down one-on-one, now you're going to see that influx of safety and corner blitzes, and that's when Bowles is at his absolute best. Look for Dean to have a couple of key pass breakups and a really solid outing out there against the NFL's leader in touchdown receptions. My score prediction, look, it's hard to pick against this team. They do what it takes to win week after week. I had somebody DM the Locked On Bucs Twitter account trying to tell me that the only reason they beat the Niners was because Warner went down, and that could not be further from the truth. Granted, he was a Niners fan. Maybe he was trying to cope or make himself feel better. I don't know. But both of those teams were beat up all over their starting 22 players. But the Bucs were the ones that found a way to overcome that and win. They've done it all season long. This time, they're coming into a game where one team is missing a ton of key players, and the other team is finally the Bucs, who are the ones getting healthy. I think that's going to be the difference. The Bucs are going to win this one in a semi-shootout, 34-28. All right, going to jump into the chat. Let's see some of your guys' predictions here. Let's see. We got Zach, Bucs 40, Lions 25. I like that one. David, 20-16. Once again, Bucs win on Monday Night Football. We got another David. Baker has his best game. Rashad White, too. Evans rallies the team with a game-winning touchdown. Bucs defense steps up. Win big in Detroit, 35-22. Fausto, Mike going for 130 and a touchdown. Emeka Egbuka going for 100+ and a touchdown. I love that. Benjamin, my prediction, I think the Bucs handle this game and win 35-27. Reddick with a sack, fumble. Bucs have circled this game, and this will be a statement win. Evans with 95 yards and a touchdown. Let's see. Marcel, Bucs edge out Cats by 3 points. Nail-biting game. Demon Hunter, Mike goes off tomorrow. 9 catches, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Calling for a 20-yard average per reception. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Emeka Egbuka has only 4 targets, but catches all 4 for 88 and a touchdown. Jacob finally gets a pick and houses it. Benjamin Morrison gets a pick. Jamel as well. Calling for 3 picks, multiple touchdowns. Goodness gracious. Demon Hunter, he says the score is 38-28. We got ATK 36-30 Bucs. Tyler, 42-31 Lions win. Calling for the Lions. And then he follows up, I love the Bucs, but I think it'll get away from us. Okay, they're not going to go 16-1. I'm fairly confident in saying that. So I don't hate on you for picking, it's a tough place to play. It's a good football team. It's not like I would be shocked if we're coming on here live Monday night after the game talking about the Bucs falling a little bit short. All right, my guy Paul, another Ohioan. Prediction, Baker with 300+ yards, 2 touchdowns, a 31-17 win. Evans with 80+ and a touchdown. Rashad with 150 total yards. Love that. Demon Hunter says Mike is a player of the game. Fausto wants another 5 interception performance by Jared Goff. Let's see who else is in here that we have not heard from yet. We got Ricky. He says fire the cannons, big W. He's calling for a win. Narav, 28-24 Bucks. KK, 24-21 Bucks. Reggie, he says defense gets 3 turnovers. Let's see, the Beggies 95 jumps in to just say Niners are choking bad. Not even a prediction. We're doing this during the Falcons 49ers game and just updating us. He said, let them go 60 yards in 20 seconds. Yeah, that the math checks out on that one. Let's see. Zach, Bake has to bake tomorrow, and bake he will. Zach, that's the perfect message to end this one on. And once again, for those that joined late in the live, I opened the show with this. I'm going to close the show with this because, it's a tough day for a lot of people out there that are part of your Buccaneers family. Doug Martin, sadly, tragically passes away at the age of 36. Gerald McCoy had tweeted out that he has lost 5 different teammates that he has had over the course of his career to, untimely deaths. So our love, our prayers, our thoughts are with the Martin family, with all of Doug's friends, his former teammates. Check on your friends, check on your family, check on people that you don't hear from, because you never know what could be going on. So, make sure that the people in your life know that you love them. Again, we don't know the cause of this death, but the message remains the same. Make sure the people that are in your life know that you care about them, that you love them, that you're there for them whenever they may need you, because you never know what somebody could be going through. All right, that is going to do it for this episode. Please check out everything going on over on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Follow on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, don't want to be an insider, it's real easy. Like this episode on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. We will be live again after the game. Make sure those notifications on YouTube are turned on so you know exactly when we're going live. I'm shooting for within an hour of the game ending. Doesn't always work out that way, but that is the goal. So start to keep an eye out, at about the 45-minute to an hour mark. Check Twitter. I'll also post there around what time I will be going live. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.